Sarah Ruth, I heard you're using the Alveary. Aren't their book selections pretty liberal? This has been the most common question I've been asked since we switched over to the Alveary this year. Well, today I'm going to take some time to talk about this very thing. How have we liked the book selections with the Alveary? Have I had to make changes? Are we going liberal? Stay tuned. Let's talk all about it.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a
Hello,
good day.
I'm Sarah Ruth with Kindle Togetherness. Here on our channel, we share all things faith-filled homeschooling, faith-filled adventures, and faith-filled homemaking. Today, I'm going to be talking more about the homeschooling side of things. And if you have never watched one of our videos or aren't subscribed to our channel, I'd be so thankful if you would go ahead and subscribe now. Like this video, please engage as I'm talking. If you have questions, ask them. I always try to get back to everybody. Other people may respond to you with good information, helpful information. I work hard to build a community over on Instagram. People are in my inbox all the time, and I value and appreciate the opportunity to engage with others and to learn together. So yeah, don't be silent. Don't just watch, but engage. Share your opinions. Share your thoughts. Share things that you found helpful. Share your questions. We can help each other. So without further ado, today's video is going to be about probably the most commonly asked question I've had with the Alveary, which is regarding their book selections. And specifically right now, I'm getting this question 2 or 3 days a week. And it's intrigued me a little bit. I've gotten it since the very first time I shared we were switching to the Alveary. What has intrigued me is that people will come and ask me, how's the book selection? I've heard that it can be very liberal. And I understand what people are asking. What has been interesting to me is I have not been able to find until just this past 2 weeks, anybody providing specific examples of what they mean. And so for me, it's been hard to even address the question. I've only used the Alveary this year, so we're entering exam week of term 2. So I'll be starting term 3. I've pre-read the books. I have not personally found anything super concerning. I'm going to talk about places where maybe it wasn't any huge issue, but we had to have conversations, or I could see where somebody else might have trouble. So yeah, my sons are 12, 10, and 8 now. They all literally just had a birthday. So they are Forms 1 and Form 2, and I have a 12-year-old who will be moving up to Form 3 next year. So the Alveary just opened up their membership. It's February, and they shared their book talks for next year. And I began looking at the Form 3 books for my 12-year-old because he'll be moving up into Form 3. So I'm going to begin at the beginning. And a little teaser here. Another question that has come up a few times that I'm going to address in this same video towards the end is diversity in the Alveary. Is it there? What is it like? What are my opinions? And how might others feel? So if that's of interest to you, stay tuned because I am going to talk about that for a couple minutes at the end of this video. Also, just a little disclaimer, if you have followed along for a while, you may not have seen this background before. It's always here in my house. This is my online classroom. This is my teacher, Sarah Ruth. Sure, I do not wear this as a homeschool uniform. I'm actually an ESL teacher online. If that's something you're interested in or you have experience in, I have a video about that, about working from home. And I share a little bit about the online teaching that I've done for the past decade. I am a certified teacher, and so that's opened this door for me and is a true blessing. I'm not going to go into that, but I just wanted to explain why I'm in such a unique setting. It's very early in the morning. This is the best lighting in my house early in the morning. It's all set up for me to be online. So that's how we're rolling today. Welcome to my online classroom, guys. But books. So first, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. We have not had big problems with the books that the Alveary chose this year. I went to their conference this past summer. I did not feel like it was a liberal conference. There were beautiful people there. It was, it felt saturated in prayer. Min Huang did a poetry, or not a poetry, sorry, a tea time for us that was just delightful and beautiful and everything I could have hoped for. She and Amber from Heritage Mom Blog were the hosts, and they did a lovely job. There were a couple speakers. One was a believer and one was not. That I felt like, okay, these are good. They've added some things, some value, but I'm not sure, like, if they were the only speakers, I wouldn't have gone to the conference, if I knew what they were talking on. One of them had a very strong message, a very personal message that she feels very strongly about, that probably many people would consider liberal and would have struck them in a very heavy way. And if you don't align with her worldview, then it may have been a hard session. I don't always feel like that's bad. I want to be exposed to different ideas. I'm an adult, and it's good for me to encounter these situations where I'm a little uncomfortable and process through and think about my own belief system. And yeah, so would I say the Alveary is woke or liberal? No. Whatever your interpretation of those words are might be different than mine. But for me, I just feel like they have a lot of different representation within their board of directors, which I think they've sought out and tried to do purposefully, which I don't think is a bad thing. And so now going into the book selections for this year. So I'm going to show you a couple of the books that we used. This was the Form 2 Spine. Believe it or not, this was a book I already had, that I had already purchased. This is from Simply Charlotte Mason. I had used it, not the whole thing, but some of it, with my sons already. So my oldest boy was like, I've read this. And I was like, well, you've not read it independently. You were much younger, and I think there's value in you going through it independently and narrating it and doing written narrations. So anyway, this book, I don't have any issues with it whatsoever. I didn't feel like there was anything in it. Just history, just sharing history. So this was one of the books that was a primary spine this year. So here I'm going to show you a book that some people had trouble with. My family didn't have the same trouble others had, so I did not find this book especially living. I feel like it's a little more textbook than we are used to. I really like more of a narrative format than this offers. So you can kind of see it. It has a lot of little like breakouts, which I associate this formatting more with a textbook, where there's like kind of a section on something, and there's a lot of images with captions and subtitles. So I didn't find this a very continuous story. It just goes through different tribes and different locations in the USA, and stories, different folktales that they have, different traditions, different celebrations. It shows you where they're located on a map. It talks about encounters with European settlers, the Spanish. So there were people that I saw having discussions who were horrified by this book, not because they felt like it wasn't living, but due to the content. And there are places where, it probably has a little bit of a slant. And the slant is the indigenous tribes were wholly mistreated, were primarily innocent, and the conquistadors and the European settlers came in, stole their land, did horrible things, and that's it. These are peaceful people living, doing their own deal, and these other people came in. And I think that's the purpose of this book, is to tell the Indigenous stories. And for us, I'm able to accept that this is one book amongst many that my children have read and been exposed to, and I'm okay with the author's kind of intention here to show the beauty of the lifestyle of these people. I mean, they do talk about wars between tribes. I didn't feel like it was a dishonest book. I just felt like the author's purpose and intention was to present the Indigenous tribes and the First Nations people from their perspective and point of view and traditions. And for some, that was very upsetting because it didn't have a great balance in it. But I don't know that every book is going to do that. I think maybe sometimes we have to use multiple books to get those perspectives. So there are some content considerations in this book. There is a little bit of violence. So if your student is coming into the Alveary, and I make this suggestion for any curriculum you're going to use. And I know a lot of mothers say they don't have time, but in my opinion, as a very busy working mom, who also runs a co-op and has like 3 or 4 different businesses she runs, I think it's essential that you pre-read books. It's just a non-negotiable for me. I pre-read my children's books. This is their consumption. This is what they are consuming, and it's feeding their heart and their soul and their mind. And it's really important that we know what's going in. So I'm going to show you another book from this year. So this book was part of the Science Inform 2. And this was an excellent book. My boys both liked it that read it. And it has a lot of civil rights and conversations just about the unfairness. And it's a very natural progression. Like there are doctors working together and coming up with discoveries and really important medical progression. And, there's this Black doctor who is just brilliant and is not getting credit. He's working alongside these other physicians, and the white physicians are getting all the credit. And naturally, as time goes on and they work together for years and years, and things are changing and progress is happening, and eventually the white doctors finally confess, this man should get the credit. This man has done the work. And I really liked the way that this was addressed in this book. I do not feel, I consider our family very conservative. We're politically conservative. We are biblically conservative in all the ways that I feel like you could be conservative. We are. Maybe not on environmental things. Maybe we lean more moderate on environment. We believe in creation care. But on every other topic, like if you were to just list out the major topics that people are divided on, I think we would land conservative. So I personally found this book to be wonderfully written and share on both the science side of things and the story of these doctors and their discoveries and the amazing gifts God had given them, plus the story that was intertwined and that was going on simultaneously of the injustice that existed in our nation and in our culture, and the bias against a Black doctor who was brilliant and who was contributing in such an important way to these medical discoveries and saving lives, and how in the end, these physicians confessed that they had been unfair and saw that they should give credit to where credit is due. So anyway, did I find this book concerning? No, I thought it was well done. So now I want to talk about next year. My oldest boy will be going into Form 3, and I found a book that I think is problematic for our family. I saw it in the book talk on YouTube, and a friend and I began to discuss it. I do not have a copy. But I read the reviews and I talked to somebody that owns a copy. And so I'm going to tell you the name of the book, and so you can go do your own research. But the name of the book is The Story of Science, and this is a series. And the one they're using next year in Form 3 Science for Grade 7 is Aristotle Leads the Way. And if you go through some of the reviews, first of all, this is a secular text. It was not written by a believer. And initially, it looks really cool. Like, I love the premise that, it seems to be a living book. However, when you begin to look at the way it's written, and when you begin to look at the reviews, you find out that maybe there are some derogatory ideas that the author holds that are portrayed within the book against Christians, essentially saying that, Christians are foolish, or I have not read the book, but my takeaway was there was enough of this bias in the text that it's not something I'm going to hand to my 7th grader and just let him learn from. Now, we are fortunate in that I did science this year with my grade 4 and grade 6 student together. They're both Form 2. I chose to combine them in science, and we selected from grade 4, I think, and grade 6 science. We've not done the grade 5 science yet. Next year, my 10-year-old will be grade 5 and my 12-year-old will technically be grade 7. I don't really worry about grades a whole lot, you guys. I'm more form oriented, but I'm making an executive decision that I looked through the books for grade 5 science. I liked the way that they had it set up. We've really enjoyed it this year. We enjoyed all the selections for science, the labs. We thought they were great. So we're going to go back and do grade 5 science. I'm going to put both the boys together and we're just going to do it. I do not feel like it will hurt my grade 7 son to do this grade 5 science. I don't feel like the way that the Alveary has it and the book selections that it's so specifically grade 5. I feel like it could very easily be grade 8 science, depending on what you expect of your child and their engagement with the material. So that is my workaround for this upcoming year. My workaround is, hey, there's other plans in here that we've not used that I feel like are appropriate for my son. Now, if you're not in that position and you feel the same way as I do about this chosen text for science, I suggest you purchase it, you pre-read it, and then you make your decision. Is the Alveary still worth having if you can't use this science material? Yes, I do think it is. Was it very disappointing for me? Yeah, it was, because science has been probably my favorite thing this year from the Alveary. So I'm hopeful that maybe they'll get enough feedback this year that they will make an adjustment next year. So I'm kind of giving them time. Maybe they're gonna get some feedback about this series and learn that it's not the best fit for the majority of the families who use the Alveary, or maybe they'll really stand behind this series and there aren't enough parents with concerns and I'll have to make a different selection for science in the future. But for this year, my adjustment and workaround is that we're going to use the grade 5 plans and carry on. So I hope this answers your questions about, is the Alveary liberal? Are there book selections concerning, will they work in your home? They've worked in ours for the most part. Now, I promised to talk to you about diversity a little bit. So I've had this question pop into my inbox a few times, and I don't always feel qualified. If a Black person or a person of color is coming to me and saying, is there enough diversity in the Alveary? I'm like, who am I to be? Anyway, that aside, since it's been asked, I guess I'm qualified. I don't know. Take it or leave it. But I'm going to share with you. So I feel like the Alveary has worked really hard to include diversity. I also feel like it's probably not enough diversity for some families. If my children had brown skin, there would be more I'd be adding in, so they would have more of what Amber from Heritage Mom Blog calls mirrors. For our family, I do still add some things in just because we have it in our home library and I'm familiar with books that will work. But I'm going to show you a few of the texts that were included this year, and I'm going to talk to you about a couple things. This year's history rotation with the Alveary was ancient history through Middle Ages. So you're talking about, the ancient pyramids and ancient Israel and moving up into the Renaissance. So thinking about that time period and what is available in living books, and if you're not specifically studying Africa in your history stream for world history, with your Form 2 and Form 3 students and Form 4, what this is going to look like and what you're going to add in. So I'm going to show you a couple things that they included. So it seems like this book is included year to year, and they try to pull just a couple songs from it each year. I already owned this book, actually. I really, really like it. I think that the songs within here probably didn't fit very well in the ancient history to Renaissance time period. These are songs that became popular and were written and were used more like in the 1700s and beyond. So I have a feeling we're going to be using this more this coming year, and I'm excited to do so. My boys are already familiar with the book. We have sung these songs in the past, but the Alveary does include this on their book list for composer study and folk song. Another book that was included, I think this is part of the free reads for Form 2. This is a wonderful book. I read it myself, Brown Girl Dreaming. So this was included this year. It is not from the time period that we're studying. It's the 1960s and 1970s, but great read, highly recommend. Felt like it added a wonderful element of diversity. I already showed you this book, which was part of our science. I love that it was incorporated in science. It was so well done. Definitely addressed issues of bias and civil rights and all of those things that are really important for our kids to have exposure to. And then going back to this book, I feel like the Alveary did a great job in both Forms 1 and Forms 2, including learning about Indigenous tribes and First Nations people. I hope to continue to see that next year. I was looking over the book selections. It did feel like they included quite a bit of that. So in my honest opinion, of all the Charlotte Mason curriculums that I'm familiar with their book selections, A Gentle Feast, Ambleside Online, the Alveary, CMEC, even I would say the Peaceful Press is more Charlotte Mason inspired with a lot of literature unit study. I feel like the Alveary is the most conscientious of including diversity, and I feel like they're very thoughtful and intentional about it, but I still feel like maybe there could be more, but there may be more as we get into other time periods. So I'm a little hesitant to jump in and say there should be more, because I do feel like the time period we studied this particular year was going to be really hard to make sure that there's tons of that included, especially when you have Form 1 students who are studying just U.S. history. You really have the Indigenous tribes and the very beginning of enslaved peoples being brought to the Americas, like in the 1400s. Okay, all of that said, if you are looking for books to add and you want them to be based on the history cycles, I have two resources for you. The first one is Amber, Heritage Mom Blog. She has so much on her website. It is so searchable. If you go to her website and you just type in search, she has composer studies by time period. She has beautiful, rich, living books about Africa and about the joy of being African and the story before, there were Black people enslaved, the story of who they were before there was any touch from other outside parts of the world, which I think is really important to read about. And then also, Stories of Color she has created a database of books, searchable by so many different categories. You just have to go to the website and see, and totally worth accessing both of these websites if you're interested in building a home library that has windows and mirrors, windows being windows into somebody else's world, into, the viewpoint of somebody that does not have your same perspective or culture or identity, or appearance or ethnicity. And then mirrors being, when you want to see yourself, somebody living a similar life and culture and story as you. So anyway, that's all I've got. Again, I really appreciate it if you would take a second and like this video, and be sure and subscribe to our channel. It's been a joy. I always am excited to hear your responses, to respond to your questions, to see what you have to say. And I'm Sarah Ruth. I hope that you have a wonderful week with your children.